Alright, welcome guys to another episode with Antagonize, or whatever I call myself these days. Today we're going to make a reply video. Last time I made a reply video was about, I think it was about E3 or some bullshit. But today we're going to be talking about something a bit more serious, in my opinion, a lot more serious. So let me tell you a little bit of my background. So I've been making movies and just working on computers for a little while now. I've been making movies for a really long time, but like working really with the hardware that I have to try to make the best movies possible. I've been doing it for, not that long ago. I think I started when I was 15 looking up into computers, and I think only like a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years ago, I really got into the hardware itself, and I got into the used market. And I have accumulated a large proportion of information, I guess, knowledge in the subject. And this is thanks to a lot of content, but for the most part, the best way to understand the market is to actually go on the market and to at least hypothesize what you want to do on the market and then try to fake buy components. And this is a tactic that has been used by some of the best investors today. So I do recommend, if you do enjoy, statistics and just doing mental work on the market, try to understand what is the best bang for buck. It's really, really fun to go on Kijiji, go on, Craigslist sometimes is good, eBay, all these sites, and to try to look at the best bang for buck. With that said, I've just watched Random Gaming HD's newest video. It is titled, let me just look this up real quick. It is titled, yeah, I'm really doing this on the fly, but it is titled Great Used Gaming Graphics Cards to Suit Different Budgets, Autumn 2018. And his list, if I'm not mistaken, goes like this: GTX 1060, 3GB, 6GB, AMD RX 570, 4GB, GTX 970, 4-ish gigabytes, GTX 960, 2GB, GTX 750 Ti, 2GB, and HD 7850. Now, in this graphics card lineup, I do agree with a large proportion of these graphics cards. When it comes to, best used gaming graphics cards per se, no, I don't agree. But with the idea that you're getting into gaming and you're trying to buy something at a decent price that you're not gonna get fucked with, and you're trying out the gaming world. These graphics cards have really good support. They're really reliable, in my opinion, when it comes to TDP and just some of the overclocking configurations maybe. But per se, great used gaming graphics cards to suit different budgets, I will disagree entirely, because the idea of a graphics card is to run graphics, right? Is to get the best performance out of 3D. Now, a budget graphics card, in my mind, is a graphics card that has the best performance per dollar. And that said, these graphics cards do not have the best performance per dollar. Yes, they're more reliable than some of the stuff I'm going to talk about, but they are not. As it stands, these are fucking terrible graphics cards for what you're supposed to do, on the most part. Now, today I'm not going to refute all his choices, because they're not bad. They're honestly not bad. But this is kind of a part two, or like basically I'm trying to feed myself. I have information. If you want it, here it is. So quickly, I'm going to review all the used graphics cards that are good for different budgets. If you are in the top end used graphics market, you're trying to get your 4K performances at the lowest price on the used market, your best bang for buck is the GTX 980 Ti. I have a 980 Ti for my 4K gaming setup, which I'm not going to make a video about because it's not interesting. But I bought a 980 Ti. I live in Canada, so I'm going to talk about in Canadian dollars. Right now 1.29 is the conversion, USD to CAD, 1.29, so about 30%. I got my GTX 980 Ti at 300 Canadian dollars, and I know for a fact you could get one for 400, 450 at a decent, decent quality, and you can overclock it, and it will do all the stuff that you will need for 4K. And now we're talking about a graphics card that has come out in 2016 and that's doing so well. Why? Because Nvidia and Radeon aren't really concentrated on the highest resolution, the highest frame rate anymore. Now we're looking at all these new what's it called, technologies for better looking graphics. I personally don't give a shit. I know most people don't give a shit. In a distant future maybe we will, but to this day we don't. It's not really a point. The second option, and this is an option that was more relevant maybe a year ago, was the R9 Fury X. Now, the R9 Fury X got a lot of flack when it first came out. It is a very good budget graphics card nowadays because of that. It seems that their reputation have really lowered, but I guess because of the Bitcoin and how Radeon cards have now a higher reputation when it comes to the dollar, I guess they got back into the market as more valuable cards. It's also probably because they weren't sold as much as the GTX 980 Ti, so not as many people are trying to sell them out. So they end up having, more people trying to buy used, less people trying to sell. Obviously, that inflates the market. These are the best cards for 4K on the used market. They will give you great bang for buck. Not that there's a lot of cards for 4K, but those are two cards that really stand out. When it comes to that, you might find a good deal on a 1080, 1070 even, but they're never going to be as good as a bang for buck than the 980 Ti, especially the 980 Ti. The R9 Fury X, not as much, but still relevant. Now, the second card I want to talk about is the GTX 780 Ti and the R9 Fury. Sorry, two cards, but same budget idea. The 780 Ti overclocked is still a beast. It runs DirectX 12 games just as well as the R9 Fury. The R9 Fury overclocked is also really good. They have much higher overclocks than R9 Fury X, and they're just overall really fucking good. I was actually considering buying them for 1440p and some of the lower end stuff. If you're just looking for a really good graphics card for running 1080p games, but you also want to have all your video editing stuff running pretty fast at 1440p. That's why I like these two. The 780 Ti, still very relevant. I did have a GTX Titan before, and I can tell you that thing is a beast. The 780 Ti, if I ever overclocked my Titan, it would have been so much better, but obviously 780 Ti, better bang for buck. GTX 970 versus R9 290 or 290X, those are really good cards. The 970 for a really long time was so good for the dollar, but recently got fucked in the ass because of the R9 290 and 290X. The R9 290 historically has been the cheaper of the two cards of the 290X, and it did really well when it first came out. It was much better bang for buck than the 290X, and it didn't thermal throttle as much on the stock coolers apparently. I wasn't there when that came out, honestly, but I do know a lot about it. I do own a 290 right now, and I bought one for $160, which is a fucking amazing price for something. I'm running the Sapphire Tri-X card, which is one of the best cards for the overclock and stuff. So if you can find one of those, they're really, really good. And Crossfire, they will run just as well as the GTX 1080 if you have the right setup with the right board or whatever, the right material for it. You could definitely do that in 2018. It'll run super good, and it'll run for way less than half of the price of the 1080. Remember, they talked about the RX 570. The 290 and 970 are way more powerful than the 570 in a lot of respects. The only reason why they said the 570 was because the 570 is a newer card, and it also uses less TDP. But we're talking about just performance per price, like I said. Now, a really good card also that I put in this category, but in general is just a really fucking good card, and honestly should be closer to the R9 Fury's performance, or a Fury X actually, is the Radeon HD 7990. The 7990 is basically essentially two R9 280Xs, or whatever, two HD 7970s. and they're really fucking good. But the problem is they're super rare, and I've only found them a couple times over the last year at good prices, decent prices, and I think the Bitcoin rise did affect this a lot, but they're much rarer than before. So I did put this in 2 tiers below than their actual performance. That's just because I'm scared that they will go up in prices. The next tier I'm going to talk about is the 1080p, more of that modest person, the one that doesn't care about, high FPS. Oh yeah, sorry. The tier before this, so the third tier, is the tier for high FPS 1080p gaming. Someone that only cares about having the highest FPS on a game, playing at 1080p. Someone playing, Far Cry 4 and does not want to have any, micro stutters or anything that is significant with, overclocked cards. These cards will do it stable or overclocked. Either or, they will do very well. Sounds like I'm babbling, but, I understand myself at least. So the GTX 680 and the R9 280X are two extremely good cards, even to this day. The R9 280X has gotten a boost in price, but I do think it is slightly more powerful than the 680. 680 overclocked, depending on the cooler it has, very fucking good. The 280X overclocked as well, and it also has 1 gig of RAM, VRAM extra than the 680, which makes it a good contender for, the most part of higher resolutions. So if you are thinking of doing some video editing and you need a card to see the playback better, then I think the 280X would do a better job in higher resolutions as well. The 680 is just overall best card you can get if you're gonna run high FPS games, games like competitive games like CS:GO. I know Rainbow Six Siege is becoming more and more popular. I think it'll run that game pretty well. I'm not sure, I haven't seen the benchmarks, but it should be able to run competitive games very, very well. Alright, now let's talk about the lowest tier card I will talk about today. I don't want to get into lower tiers because I don't really check them very often. So my best pick for the tier right under the R9 280X and the 680, cards that you would want to overclock to try to get the best performance out of your 1080p environment, or whatever you want to call it. My opinion is the Radeon HD 7870. That is a great card. I know the 285 is really similar to the R9 285. These are really good cards, even to this day. If you're gonna run CS:GO, LOL, whatever these fucking stupid comp games that you like. I like CS:GO personally. These cards are the perfect ones. The 7870. I know the 7950 is a little bit more rare. It has 3 gigs of RAM, kind of like the 7970 or the 280X. Overclocked, it will do just as well as the 280X, and this card is also really good. If you can find that card at a good price, that would be even better than the 7870, but these are very similar cards. The lowest card, the lower card, the card just under that I put in the same tier because it is much cheaper than these two other cards, is the fucking GTX 660. Great card. SLI, it's really good. And that's probably the lowest I could go with price. I think I could get one for $50, $70. They're really good, and they're just worth $1. I know 7870, $100 maybe. R9 280X, that's where you're creeping in the 120, 130. The 680 is around there. I've seen some at $100 though, so the 680 is cheaper than 280X these days. What else? 7990, I've seen them at 300, 400, and on eBay 500 maybe. Not really worth it, but R9 290, I bought one at $160. I will have a video on that because I am making a build with it. 970, I have seen it. Oh my god, it's been years since I haven't seen that card. Maybe $200. The 290X you will see it at 200 as well. Or 180 now maybe. Depends. R9 Fury, that's where you're gonna see it 250, 220, almost 300 sometimes. The 780 Ti, that's where you're gonna see it at 220, 250, lower than the R9 Fury by a little bit. R9 Fury X, 300, 350. I wouldn't pay more than that, but it does go at 550 these days. And of course the big boy 980 Ti, 400, 450. I bought mine at 300 though. I do consider buying older cooling graphics cards, so like older spec graphics cards for in exchange for, you know, cheaper prices. That's my strong philosophy with graphics cards. Just buy that name for that price, because anyways, if I'm gonna overclock it to the point it dies, I don't give a shit. It's gonna take a year anyways, so why the fuck not? Anyways, that's my video today, guys. Just so you know, I do enjoy Radeon I made this mistake twice. Random Gaming HD's videos. He is pretty good content creator. He has been lacking the in my opinion, he's been trying to milk his channel a lot. As a fellow YouTuber, or whatever, fellow content creator, more so, because I don't really do YouTube anymore at all. I do recommend trying to get into different subjects and talk about them. Me personally, I'm a big fan of cars. I do enjoy his random car videos, but he just doesn't have enough because he obviously doesn't have the money for it. So I would get into, you know, I know TV screens are popular, I know consoles are popular, I know fucking sim racers even. I bought a sim racer for a good price. Mice, keyboards, all this shit you could get for amazing prices. You know, university students like myself do it all the fucking time. Please find a different hobby than just milking your channel, because that's actually hurting my feelings. Anyways, have a good day, guys.